Sahih Bukhari Book 59. Military expeditions led by the Prophet, Al-Maghaazi. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 450. Narrated by Abu Burda, Abu Musa said, "We went out in the company of the Prophet for a ghazwa, and we were 6 persons having one camel which we rode in rotation. So, due to excessive walking, our feet became thin and my feet became thin and my nail dropped, and we used to wrap our feet with the pieces of cloth, and for this reason, the ghazwa was named daturika, as we wrapped our feet with rags." When Abu Musa narrated this hadith, he felt regretful to do so and said, as if he disliked to have disclosed a good deed of his. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 285. Narrated by Abu Ishaq, once, while I was sitting beside Zayd bin al-Arqam, he was asked, "How many ghazwat did the Prophet undertake?" Zayd replied, 19. They said, "In how many ghazwat did you join him?" He replied, 17. I asked, "Which of these was the first?" He replied, Al-Ashara or Al-Ashara. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 286. Narrated by Abdullah bin Mas'udi, from Sa'd bin Mu'adh. Sa'd bin Mu'adh was an intimate friend of Umayyah bin Khalaf, and whenever Umayyah passed through Medina, he used to stay with Sa'd, and whenever Sa'd went to Mecca, he used to stay with Umayyah. When Allah's apostle arrived at Medina, Sa'd went to perform Umrah and stayed at Umayyah's home in Mecca. He said to Umayyah, "Tell me of a time when the mosque is empty so that I may be able to perform tawaf around the Kaaba." So Umayyah went with him about midday. Abu Yal met them and said, "O Abu Safwan, who is this man accompanying you?" He said, "He is Sa'd." Abu Yal addressed Sa'd saying, "I see you wandering about safely in Mecca in spite of the fact that you have given shelter to the people who have changed their religion, i.e. became Muslims, and have claimed that you will help them and support them. By Allah, if you were not in the company of Abu Safwan, you would not be able to go your family safely." Sa'd, raising his voice, said to him, "By Allah, if you should stop me from doing this, i.e. performing tawaf, I would certainly prevent you from something which is more valuable for you, that is, your passage through Medina." On this, Umayyah said to him, "O Sa'd, do not raise your voice before Abu al-Hakam, the chief of the people of the valley of Mecca." Sa'd said, "O Umayyah, stop that. By Allah, I have heard Allah's apostle predicting that the Muslim will kill you." Umayyah asked, "In Mecca?" Sa'd said, "I do not know." Umayyah was greatly scared by that news. When Umayyah returned to his family, he said to his wife, "O Safwan, don't you know what Sa'd told me?" She said, "What has he told you?" He replied, "He claims that Muhammad has informed them, i.e. companions, that they will kill me." I asked him, "In Mecca?" He replied, "I do not know." Then Umayyah added, "By Allah, I will never go out of Mecca." But when the day of the ghazwa of Badr came, Abu Yal called the people to war, saying, "Go and protect your caravan." But Umayyah disliked to go out of Mecca. Abu Yal came to him and said, "O Abu Safwan, if the people see you staying behind, though you are the chief of the people of the valley, then they will remain behind with you." Abu Yal kept on urging him to go until he, i.e. Umayyah, said, "As you have forced me to change my mind, by Allah, I will buy the best camel in Mecca." Then Umayyah said to his wife, "O Safwan, prepare what I need for the journey." She said to him, "O Abu Safwan, have you forgotten what your Yathribi brother told you?" He said, "No, but I do not want to go with them but for a short distance." So when Umayyah went out, he used to tie his camel wherever he camped. He kept on doing that till Allah caused him to be killed at Badr. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 287. Narrated by Ka'b bin Malik, I never failed to join Allah's apostle in any of his ghazawat except in the Ghazwa of Tabuk. However, I did not take part in the Ghazwa of Badr, but none who failed to take part in it was blamed, for Allah's apostle had gone out to meet the caravans of Quraysh, but Allah caused them, i.e. Muslims, to meet their enemy unexpectedly, with no previous intention. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 288. Narrated by Ibn Masud, I witnessed Al-Miqdad bin al-Aswad in a scene which would have been dearer to me than anything had I been the hero of that scene. He, i.e. Al-Miqdad, came to the Prophet while the Prophet was urging the Muslims to fight with the pagans. Al-Miqdad said, "We will not say as the people of Moses said, go you and your Lord and fight you too. 5.27, but we shall fight on your right and on your left and in front of you and behind you." I saw the face of the Prophet getting bright with happiness, for that saying delighted him. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 289. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, on the day of the Battle of Badr, the Prophet said, "O Allah! I appeal to you, to fulfill your covenant and promise. O Allah! If your will is that none should worship you, then give victory to the pagans." Then Abu Bakr took hold of him by the hand and said, "This is sufficient for you." The Prophet came out saying, "Their multitude will be put to flight and they will show their backs." 54.45. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 290. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, the believers who failed to join the Ghazwa of Badr and those who took part in it are not equal in reward. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 291. Narrated by Al-Bara, I and Ibn Umar were considered too young to take part in the Battle of Badr. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 292. Narrated by Al-Bara, I and Ibn Umar were considered too young to take part in the Battle of Badr, and the number of the emigrant warriors were over 60 men, and the Ansar were over 249. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 293. Narrated by Al-Bara, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad who took part in Badr, told me that their number was that of Saul's, i.e. Talos, companions who crossed the river of Jordan with him, and they were over 310 men. By Allah, none crossed the river with him but a believer. See Quran 2:249. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 294. Narrated by Al-Bara, we, the companions of Muhammad, used to say that the number of the warriors of Badr was the same as the number of Saul's companions who crossed the river of Jordan with him, and none crossed the river with him but a believer, and they were over 310 men. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 295. Narrated by Al-Bara, as below, Hadith 295. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 296. Narrated by Al-Bara, we used to say that the warriors of Badr were over 310, as many as the companions of Saul who crossed the river with him, and none crossed the river with him but a believer. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 297. Narrated by Abdullah bin Mas'udi, the Prophet faced the Kaaba and invoked evil on some people of Quraysh, on Shaiba bin Rabi'a, Utbah bin Rabi'a, Al-Walid bin Utbah and Abu Yal bin Hisham. I bear witness, by Allah, that I saw them all dead, putrefied by the sun, as that day was a very hot day. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 298. Narrated by Abdullah, that he came across Abu Yal while he was on the point of death on the day of Badr. Abu Yal said, "You should not be proud that you have killed me, nor I am ashamed of being killed by my own folk." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 299. Narrated by Anas, as below, Hadith 300. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 300. Narrated by Anas, the Prophet said, "Who will go and see what has happened to Abu Yal?" Ibn Mas'ud went and found that the two sons of Afra had struck him fatally, and he was in his last breaths. Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, "Are you Abu Yal?" and took him by the beard. Abu Yal said, "Can there be a man superior to one you have killed or one whom his own folk have killed?" Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 301. Narrated by Anas, on the day of Badr, the Prophet said, "Who will go and see what has happened to Abu Yal?" Ibn Mas'ud went and found that the two sons of Afra had struck him fatally. Abdullah bin Mas'ud got hold of his beard and said, "Are you Abu Yal?" He replied, "Can there be a man more superior to one whom his own folk have killed, or you have killed?" Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 302. Narrated by Anas bin Malik, as above Hadith 301. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 303. Narrated by Abdurrahman bin Auf, the grandfather of Salah bin Ibrahim, the story of Badr, namely, the narration regarding the sons of Afra. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 304. Narrated by Abu Mijlaz, from Qais bin Ubad, Ali bin Abi Talib said, "I shall be the first man to kneel down before Allah, the Beneficent, to receive his judgment on the day of resurrection, in my favor." Qais bin Ubad also said, the following verse was revealed in their connection. "These two opponents, believers and disbelievers, dispute with each other about their Lord." 22.19, Qais said that they were those who fought on the day of Badr, namely, Hamza, Ali, Ubaidah or Abu Ubaidah bin al-Harith, Shaiba bin Rabi'a, Utbah and Al-Wad bin Utbah. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 305. Narrated by Abu Dhar, the following holy verse, "These two opponents, believers and disbelievers, dispute with each other about their Lord," 22.19, was revealed concerning 6 men from Quraysh, namely, Ali, Hamza, Ubaidah bin al-Harith, Shaiba bin Rabi'a, Utbah bin Rabi'a and Al-Walid bin Utbah. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 306. Narrated by Ali, the following holy verse, "These two opponents, believers and disbelievers, dispute with each other about their Lord," 22.19, was revealed concerning us. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 307. Narrated by Qais bin Ubad, I heard Abu Dhar swearing that these holy verses were revealed in connection with those 6 persons on the day of Badr. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 308. Narrated by Qais, I heard Abu Dhar swearing that the following holy verse, "These two opponents, believers and disbelievers, disputing with each other about their Lord," 22.19, was revealed concerning those men who fought on the day of Badr, namely, Hamza, Ali, Ubaidah bin al-Harith, Utbah and Shaiba, the 2 sons of Rabi'a, and Al-Walid bin Utbah. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 309. Narrated by Abu Ishaq, a man asked Al-Bara and I was listening, "Did Ali take part in the battle of Badr?" Al-Bara said, "Yes, he even met his enemies in a duel and was clad in 2 armors, one over the other." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 310. Narrated by Abdurrahman bin Auf, I had an agreement with Umayyah bin Khalaf, that he would look after my relatives and property in Mecca, and I would look after his relatives and property in Medina. Abdurrahman then mentioned the killing of Umayyah and his son on the day of Badr, and Bilal said, "Woe to me if Umayyah remains safe, i.e. alive." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 311. Narrated by Abdullah, the Prophet recited Surat an-Najm and then prostrate himself, and all who were with him prostrate too. But an old man took a handful of dust and touched his forehead with it, saying, "This is sufficient for me." Later on I saw him killed as an infidel. Narrated Urway, the son of Az-Zubair. Az-Zubair had 3 scars caused by the sword, one of which was over his shoulder and I used to insert my fingers in it. He received 2 of those wounds on the day of Badr and 1 on the day of Al-Yarmouk. When Abdullah bin Zubair was killed, Abdul Malik bin Marwan said to me, "O Urway, do you recognize the sword of Az-Zubair?" I said, "Yes." He said, "What marks does it have?" I replied, "It has a dent in its sharp edge which was caused in it on the day of Badr." Abdul Malik said, "You are right. I.e. their swords have dents because of clashing with the regiments of the enemies." Then Abdul Malik returned that sword to me, i.e. Urway. Hisham, Urway's son, said, "We estimated the price of the sword as 3,000 dinars, and after that it was taken by one of us, i.e. the inheritors, and I wish I could have had it." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 312. Narrated by Hisham, that his father said, "The sword of Az-Zubair was decorated with silver." Hisham added, "The sword of Urway was, also, decorated with silver." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 313. Narrated by Urway, on the day of the battle of Al-Yarmouk, the companions of Allah's apostle said to Az-Zubair, "Will you attack the enemy so that we shall attack them with you?" Az-Zubair replied, "If I attack them, you people would not support me." They said, "No, we will support you." So Az-Zubair attacked them, i.e. Byzantine, and pierced through their lines, and went beyond them, and none of his companions was with him. Then he returned and the enemy got hold of the bridle of his horse, and struck him 2 blows, with the sword, on his shoulder. Between these 2 wounds there was a scar caused by a blow he had received on the day of Badr, battle. When I was a child I used to play with those scars by putting my fingers in them. On that day, my brother, Abdullah bin Az-Zubair, was also with him, and he was 10 years old. Az-Zubair had carried him on a horse and led him to the care of some men. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 314. Narrated by Abu Talha, on the day of Badr, the Prophet ordered that the corpses of 24 leaders of Quraysh should be thrown into one of the dirty dry wells of Badr. It was a habit of the Prophet that whenever he conquered some people, he used to stay at the battlefield for 3 nights. So, on the 3rd day of the battle of Badr, he ordered that his she-camel be saddled. Then he set out, and his companions followed him, saying among themselves, "Definitely he, i.e. the Prophet, is proceeding for some great purpose." When he halted at the edge of the well, he addressed the corpses of the Quraysh infidels by their names and their fathers' names, "O so-and-so, son of so-and-so, and O so-and-so, son of so-and-so. Would it have pleased you if you had obeyed Allah and His Apostle? We have found true what our Lord promised us. Have you too found true what your Lord promised you?" Umar said, "O Allah's Apostle, you are speaking to bodies that have no souls." Allah's Apostle said, "By him in whose hand Muhammad's soul is, you do not hear what I say better than they do." Qatada said, "Allah brought them to life, again, to let them hear him, to reprimand them and slight them and take revenge over them, and caused them to feel remorseful and regretful." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 315. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, regarding the statement of Allah, "Those who have changed Allah's blessings for disbelief," 14.28, the people meant here by Allah are the infidels of Quraysh. Amr, a sub-narrator, said, "Those are the infidels of Quraysh, and Muhammad is Allah's blessing." Regarding Allah's statement, "and have led their people into the house of destruction," 14.29, Ibn Abbas said, it means the fire they will suffer from, after their death, on the day of Badr. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 316. Narrated by Hisham's father, it was mentioned before Aisha that Ibn Umar attributed the following statement to the Prophet: the dead person is punished in the grave because of the crying and lamentation of his family. On that, Aisha said, but Allah's Apostle said, the dead person is punished for his crimes and sins while his family cry over him then. She added, and this is similar to the statement of Allah's Apostle when he stood by the edge of the well which contained the corpses of the pagans killed at Badr, they hear what I say. She added, but he said now they know very well what I used to tell them was the truth. Aisha then recited, you cannot make the dead hear. 30.52, and you cannot make those who are in their graves hear you. 35.22, that is, when they had taken their places in the hell fire. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 317. Narrated by Ibn Umar, the Prophet stood at the well of Badr, which contained the corpses of the pagans, and said, have you found true what your Lord promised you? Then he further said, they now hear what I say. This was mentioned before Aisha and she said, but the Prophet said, now they know very well that what I used to tell them was the truth. Then she recited, the holy verse you cannot make the dead hear, till the end of verse. 30.52. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 318. Narrated by Anas, Haritha was martyred on the day of the battle of Badr, and he was a young boy then. His mother came to the Prophet and said, O Allah's Apostle, you know how dear Haritha is to me. If he is in paradise, I shall remain patient, and hope for reward from Allah, but if it is not so, then you shall see what I do. He said, may Allah be merciful to you. Have you lost your senses? Do you think there is only one paradise? There are many paradises and your son is in the most superior paradise of Al-Firdaus. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 319. Narrated by Ali, Allah's Apostle sent me, Abu Marthad and Aziz Zubair, and all of us were riding horses, and said, go till you reach Radat Kuk where there is a pagan woman carrying a letter from Hatib bin Abi Balta'a to the pagans of Mecca. So we found her riding her camel at the place which Allah's Apostle had mentioned. We said, to her, give us the letter. She said, I have no letter. Then we made her camel kneel down and we searched her, but we found no letter. Then we said, Allah's Apostle had not told us a lie, certainly. Take out the letter, otherwise we will strip you naked. When she saw that we were determined, she put her hand below her waist belt, for she had tied her cloak round her waist, and she took out the letter, and we brought her to Allah's Apostle. Then Umar said, O Allah's Apostle, this Hatib has betrayed Allah, his Apostle, and the believers. Let me cut off his neck. The Prophet asked Hatib, what made you do this? Hatib said, by Allah, I did not intend to give up my belief in Allah and his Apostle, but I wanted to have some influence among the Mecca people so that through it, Allah might protect my family and property. There is none of your companions but has some of his relatives there through whom Allah protects his family and property. The Prophet said, he has spoken the truth, do not say to him but good. Umar said, he has betrayed Allah, his Apostle, and the faithful believers. Let me cut off his neck. The Prophet said, is he not one of the Badr warriors? Maybe Allah looked at the Badr warriors and said, do whatever you like, as I have granted paradise to you, or said, I have forgiven you. On this, tears came out of Umar's eyes, and he said, Allah and his Apostle know better. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 320. Narrated by Usaid, on the day of Badr, Allah's Apostle said to us, when the enemy comes near to you, shoot at them but use your arrows sparingly, so that your arrows should not be wasted. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 321. Narrated by Abu Usaid, on the day of the Battle of Badr, Allah's apostle said to us, when your enemy comes near to you, i.e. overcome you by sheer number, shoot at them but use your arrows sparingly. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 322. Narrated by Al-Bara bin Azib, on the day of Uhud the Prophet appointed Abdullah bin Jubayr as chief of the archers, and 70 among us were injured and martyred. On the day of the battle of Badr, the Prophet and his companions had inflicted 140 casualties on the pagans, 70 were taken prisoners, and 70 were killed. Abu Sufyan said, "This is a day of revenge, for the day of Badr and the issue of war is undecided." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 323. Narrated by Abu Musa, that the Prophet said, "The good is what Allah gave us later on, after Uhud, and the reward of truthfulness is what Allah gave us after the day of the battle of Badr." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 324. Narrated by Abdurrahman bin Auf, while I was fighting in the front file on the day of the battle of Badr, suddenly I looked behind and saw on my right and left 2 young boys and did not feel safe by standing between them. Then one of them asked me secretly so that his companion may not hear, "Oh uncle, show me Abu Yal." I said, "Oh nephew, what will you do to him?" He said, "I have promised Allah that if I see him, i.e. Abu Yal, I will either kill him or be killed before I kill him." Then the other said the same to me secretly so that his companion should not hear. I would not have been pleased to be in between 2 other men instead of them. Then I pointed him, i.e. Abu Yal, out to them. Both of them attacked him like 2 hawks till they knocked him down. Those 2 boys were the sons of Afra, i.e. an Ansari woman. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 325. Narrated by Abu Huraira, Allah's apostle sent out 10 spies under the command of Asim bin Thabit al-Ansari, the grandfather of Asim bin Umar al-Khattab. When they reached a place called Al-Hayda between Usfan and Mecca, their presence was made known to a sub-tribe of Hudhail called Banu Liyan. So they sent about 100 archers after them. The archers traced the footsteps of the Muslims, till they found the traces of dates which they had eaten at one of their camping places. The archers said, "These dates are of Yathrib, i.e. Medina," and went on tracing the Muslims' footsteps. When Asim and his companions became aware of them, they took refuge in a high place. But the enemy encircled them and said, "Come down and surrender. We give you a solemn promise and covenant that we will not kill any one of you." Asim bin Thabit said, "O people! As for myself, I will never get down to be under the protection of an infidel. O Allah! Inform your Prophet about us." So the archers threw their arrows at them and martyred Asim. 3 of them came down and surrendered to them, accepting their promise and covenant, and they were Khubayb, Zayd bin Adithana and another man. When the archers got hold of them, they untied the strings of the arrow bows and tied their captives with them. The 3rd man said, "This is the first proof of treachery. By Allah, I will not go with you, for I follow the example of these." He meant the martyred companions. The archers dragged him and struggled with him, till they martyred him. Then Khubayb and Zayd bin Adithana were taken away by them, and later on they sold them as slaves in Mecca after the event of the Badr battle. The sons of Al-Harith bin Amr bin Nawfal bought Khubayb, for he was a person who had killed their father, Al-Harith bin Amr, on the day of the battle of Badr. Khubayb remained imprisoned by them till they decided unanimously to kill him. One day Khubayb borrowed from a daughter of Al-Harith a razor for shaving his public hair, and she lent it to him. By chance, while she was inattentive, a little son of hers went to him, i.e. Khubayb, and she saw that Khubayb had seated him on his thigh while the razor was in his hand. She was so much terrified that Khubayb noticed her fear and said, "Are you afraid that I will kill him?" Never would I do such a thing. Later on, while narrating the story, she said, by Allah, I had never seen a better captive than Khubayb. By Allah, one day I saw him eating from a bunch of grapes in his hand while he was fettered with iron chains and, at that time, there was no fruit in Mecca. She used to say, it was food Allah had provided Khubayb with. When they took him to Al-Hil out of Mecca sanctuary to martyr him, Khubayb requested them, allow me to offer a 2-rak'at prayer. They allowed him and he prayed 2 rakat and then said, by Allah, had I not been afraid that you would think I was worried, I would have prayed more. Then he invoked evil upon them, saying, O Allah, count them and kill them one by one, and do not leave any one of them. Then he recited, as I am martyred as a Muslim, I do not care in what way I receive my death for Allah's sake, for this is for the cause of Allah. If He wishes, He will bless the cut limbs of my body. Then Abu Sarva, Ubqa bin al-Harith went up to him and killed him. It was Khubayb who set the tradition of praying for any Muslim to be martyred in captivity, before he is executed. The Prophet told his companions of what had happened, to those 10 spies. On the same day they were martyred. Some Quraysh people, being informed of Asim bin Thabit's death, sent some messengers to bring a part of his body so that his death might be known for certain, for he had previously killed one of their leaders, in the battle of Badr. But Allah sent a swarm of wasps to protect the dead body of Asim and they shielded him from the messengers who could not cut anything from his body. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 326. Narrated by Nafi, Ibn Umar was once told that said bin Zayd bin Amr bin Nufail, one of the Badr warriors, had fallen ill on a Friday. Ibn Umar rode to him late in the forenoon. The time of the Friday prayer approached and Ibn Umar did not take part in the Friday prayer. Narrated Subaya bint al-Harith, that she was married to Sa'd bin Khala who was from the tribe of Bani Amr bin Luay, and was one of those who fought the Badr battle. He died while she was pregnant during Hajjatul Wada. Soon after his death, she gave birth to a child. When she completed the term of deliver, i.e. became clean, she prepared herself for suitors. Abu as-Sanabil bin Buladin Kak, a man from the tribe of Bani Abd Dal called on her and said to her, What? I see you dressed up for the people to ask you in marriage. Do you want to marry? By Allah, you are not allowed to marry unless 4 months and 10 days have elapsed, after your husband's death. Subaya in her narration said, when he, i.e. Abu as-Sanabil, said this to me, I put on my dress in the evening and went to Allah's apostle and asked him about this problem. He gave the verdict that I was free to marry as I had already given birth to my child and ordered me to marry if I wished. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 327. Narrated by Rafa, who was one of the Badr warriors, Gabriel came to the Prophet and said, How do you look upon the warriors of Badr among yourselves? The Prophet said, as the best of the Muslims, or said a similar statement. On that, Gabriel said, and so are the angels who participated in the Badr battle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 328. Narrated by Muadh bin Rafa'i bin Rafi. Rafa'i was one of the warriors of Badr while his father, Rafi, was one of the people of Al-Aqaba, i.e. those who gave the pledge of allegiance at Al-Aqaba. Rafi used to say to his son, I would not have been happier if I had taken part in the Badr battle instead of taking part in the Aqaba pledge. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 329. Narrated by Muayiro trademark ADH, the one who asked, the Prophet, was Gabriel. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 330. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, the Prophet said on the day of the battle of Badr, this is Gabriel holding the head of his horse and equipped with arms for the battle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 331. Narrated by Anas, Abu Zayd died and did not leave any offspring, and he was one of the Badr warriors. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 332. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, Abu Said bin Malik al-Khudri returned from a journey and his family offered him some meat of sacrifices offered at Eid al-Adha. On that he said, I will not eat it before asking, whether it is allowed. He went to his maternal brother, Qatada bin Nu'man, who was one of the Badr warriors, and asked him about it. Qatada said, after your departure, an order was issued by the Prophet cancelling the prohibition of eating sacrifices after 3 days. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 333. Narrated by Urwa, Az Zubair said, I met Ubaydah bin Said bin al-Az on the day of the battle of Badr, and he was covered with armor, so much that only his eyes were visible. He was surnamed Abu Dat al-Karish. He said, proudly, I am Abu al-Karish. I attacked him with the spear and pierced his eye and he died. I put my foot over his body to pull that spear out, but even then I had to use a great force to take it out as its both ends were bent. Urwa said, later on Allah's apostle asked Az Zubair for the spear and he gave it to him. When Allah's apostle died, Az Zubair took it back. After that Abu Bakr demanded it and he gave it to him, and when Abu Bakr died, Az Zubair took it back. Umar then demanded it from him and he gave it to him. When Umar died, Az Zubair took it back, and then Uthman demanded it from him and he gave it to him. When Uthman was martyred, the spear remained with Ali's offspring. Then Abdullah bin Az Zubair demanded it back, and it remained with him till he was martyred. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 334. Narrated by Ubaydah bin As-Samit, who was one of the Badr warriors, Allah's apostle said, give me the pledge of allegiance. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 335. Narrated by Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, Abu Hudhaifa, one of those who fought the Battle of Badr, with Allah's apostle adopted Salim as his son and married his niece Hind bint Al-Wad bin Utbah to him, and Salim was a freed slave of an Ansari woman. Allah's apostle also adopted Zayd as his son. In the pre-Islamic period of ignorance the custom was that, if one adopted a son, the people would call him by the name of the adopted father whom he would inherit as well, till Allah revealed, call them, adopted sons, by the names of their fathers. 33.5. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 336. Narrated by Ar-Rubai bint Muawid, the Prophet came to me after consuming his marriage with me and sat down on my bed as you, the sub-narrator, are sitting now, and small girls were beating the tambourine and singing in lamentation of my father who had been killed on the day of the Battle of Badr. Then one of the girls said, there is a prophet amongst us who knows what will happen tomorrow. The Prophet said to her, do not say this, but go on saying what you have spoken before. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 337. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, as below, Hadith 338. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 338. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, Abu Talha, a companion of Allah's apostle and one of those who fought at Badr together with Allah's apostle, told me that Allah's apostle said, angels do not enter a house in which there is a dog or a picture. He meant the images of creatures that have souls. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 339. Narrated by Ali, as below, Hadith 340. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 340. Narrated by Ali, I had a she-camel which I got in my share from the booty of the Battle of Badr, and the Prophet had given me another she-camel from the kumis which Allah had bestowed on him that day. And when I intended to celebrate my marriage to Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet, I made an arrangement with a goldsmith from Bani Kainaka that he should go with me to bring Idkir, i.e. a kind of grass used by goldsmiths, which I intended to sell to goldsmiths in order to spend its price on the marriage banquet. While I was collecting ropes and sacks of pack saddles for my 2 she-camels which were kneeling down beside an Ansari's dwelling, and after collecting what I needed, I suddenly found that the humps of the 2 she-camels had been cut off and their flanks had been cut open and portions of their livers had been taken out. On seeing that, I could not help weeping. I asked, "Who has done that?" They, i.e. the people, said, "Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib has done it. He is present in this house with some Ansari drinkers, a girl singer, and his friends." The singer said in her song, "O Hamza, get at the fat she-camels." On hearing this, Hamza rushed to his sword and cut of the camels' humps and cut their flanks open and took out portions from their livers. Then I came to the Prophet, with whom Zayd bin Haritha was present. The Prophet noticed my state and asked, "What is the matter?" I said, "O Allah's Apostle, I have never experienced such a day as today. Hamza attacked my 2 she-camels, cut off their humps and cut their flanks open, and he is still present in a house along some drinkers." The Prophet asked for his cloak, put it on, and proceeded, followed by Zayd bin Haritha and myself, till he reached the house where Hamza was. He asked the permission to enter, and he was permitted. The Prophet started blaming Hamza for what he had done. Hamza was drunk and his eyes were red. He looked at the Prophet, then raised his eyes to look at his knees and raised his eves more to look at his face, and then said, "You are not but my father's slaves." When the Prophet understood that Hamza was drunk, he retreated, walking backwards went out, and we left with him. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 341. Narrated by Ibn Makhl, Ali led the funeral prayer of Sal bin Hunayf and said, he was one of the warriors of Badr. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 342. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar bin al-Khattab said, when my daughter, Hafsa bint Umar, lost her husband Qanais bin Hudhaifa as-Sarni, who was one of the companions of Allah's Apostle and had fought in the Battle of Badr and had died in Medina, I met Uthman bin Affan and suggested that he should marry Hafsa, saying, "If you wish, I will marry Hafsa bint Umar to you." On that, he said, "I will think it over." I waited for a few days and then he said to me, "I am of the opinion that I shall not marry at present." Then I met Abu Bakr and said, "If you wish, I will marry you, Hafsa bint Umar." He kept quiet and did not give me any reply, and I became more angry with him than I was with Uthman. Some days later, Allah's Apostle demanded her hand in marriage and I married her to him. Later on Abu Bakr met me and said, "Perhaps you were angry with me when you offered me Hafsa for marriage and I gave no reply to you." I said, "Yes." Abu Bakr said, "Nothing prevented me from accepting your offer except that I learnt that Allah's Apostle had referred to the issue of Hafsa and I did not want to disclose the secret of Allah's Apostle, but had he, i.e. the Prophet, given her up I would surely have accepted her." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 343. Narrated by Abu Masud al-Badri, the Prophet said, "A man's spending on his family is a deed of charity." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 344. Narrated by Az-Zuri, I heard Urwa bin Az-Zubair talking to Umar bin Abdul Aziz during the latter's governorship, at Medina. He said, Al-Maghaazi bin Shubayh delayed the Asr prayer when he was the ruler of Al-Kufa. On that, Abu Mas'ud Uqba bin Amr al-Ansari, the grandfather of Zayd bin Hassan, who was one of the Badr warriors, came in and said, to Al-Maghaazi, "You know that Gabriel came down and offered the prayer and Allah's Apostle prayed 5 prescribed prayers, and Gabriel said, to the Prophet, I have been ordered to do so, i.e. offer these 5 prayers at these fixed stated hours of the day." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 345. Narrated by Abu Masud al-Badri, Allah's Apostle said, "It is sufficient for one to recite the last 2 verses of Surat al-Baqarah at night." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 346. Narrated by Mahmud bin Ar-Rabi, that Itban bin Malik, who was one of the companions of the Prophet and one of the warriors of Badr, came to Allah's Apostle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 347. Narrated by Ibn Shihab, I asked Al-Husayn bin Muhammad, who was one of the sons of Salim and one of the nobles amongst them, about the narration of Mahmud bin Ar-Rabi from Itban bin Malik, and he confirmed it. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 348. Narrated by Abdullah bin Amr bin Rabi'a trademark A, who was one of the leaders of Bani Adi, and his father participated in the Battle of Badr in the company of the Prophet. Umar appointed Qudama bin Maz'un as ruler of Bahrain. Qudama was one of the warriors of the Battle of Badr and was the maternal uncle of Abdullah bin Umar and Hafsa. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 349. Narrated by Az-Zuri, Salim bin Abdullah told me that Rafi bin Khadij told Abdullah bin Umar that his two paternal uncles who had fought in the Battle of Badr informed him that Allah's Apostle forbade the renting of fields. I said to Salim, "Do you rent your land?" He said, "Yes, for Rafi is mistaken." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 350. Narrated by Abdullah bin Shaddad bin al-Had al-Laythi, I saw Rafi bin Rafi al-Ansari, who was a Badr warrior. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 351. Narrated by Al-Miswar bin Makrama, that Amr bin Auf, who was an ally of Bani Amir bin Luay and one of those who fought at Badr in the company of the Prophet, said, Allah's Apostle sent Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah to Bahrain to bring the jizya taxation from its people, for Allah's Apostle had made a peace treaty with the people of Bahrain and appointed Al-Allah bin al-Hadrami as their ruler. So, Abu Ubaidah arrived with the money from Bahrain. When the Ansar heard of the arrival of Abu Ubaidah, on the next day, they offered the morning prayer with the Prophet, and when the morning prayer had finished, they presented themselves before him. On seeing the Ansar, Allah's Apostle smiled and said, "I think you have heard that Abu Ubaidah has brought something." They replied, "Indeed, it is so, O Allah's Apostle." He said, "Be happy, and hope for what will please you. By Allah, I am not afraid that you will be poor, but I fear that worldly wealth will be bestowed upon you as it was bestowed upon those who lived before you. So you will compete amongst yourselves for it, as they competed for it, and it will destroy you as it did them." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 352. Narrated by Nafi, Ibn Umar used to kill all kinds of snakes until Abu Lubaba al-Badr told him that the Prophet had forbidden the killing of harmless snakes living in houses and called jinnan. So Ibn Umar gave up killing them. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 353. Narrated by Anas bin Malik, some men of the Ansar requested Allah's Apostle to allow them to see him. They said, "Allow us to forgive the ransom of our sister's son, Abbas." The Prophet said, "By Allah, you will not leave a single dirham of it." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 354. Narrated by Ubaydullah bin Adi bin al-Khayyar, that Al-Miqdad bin Amr al-Kindi, who was an ally of Bani Zara and one of those who fought the Battle of Badr together with Allah's Apostle, told him that he said to Allah's Apostle, "Suppose I met one of the infidels and we fought, and he struck one of my hands with his sword and cut it off, and then took refuge in a tree and said, 'I surrender to Allah,' i.e., I have become a Muslim, could I kill him, O Allah's Apostle?" After he had said this, Allah's Apostle said, "You should not kill him." Al-Miqdad said, "O Allah's Apostle, but he had cut off one of my two hands, and then he had uttered those words." Allah's Apostle replied, "You should not kill him, for if you kill him, he would be in your position where you had been before killing him, and you would be in his position where he had been before uttering those words." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 355. Narrated by Anas, Allah's Apostle said on the day of Badr, who will go and see what has happened to Abu Yal? Ibn Mas'ud went and saw him struck by the two sons of Afra and was on the point of death. Ibn Mas'ud said, "Are you Abu Yal?" Abu Yal replied, "Can there be a man more superior to the one whom you have killed, or as Sulayman said, or his own folk have killed?" Abu Yal added, "Would that I had been killed by other than a mere farmer." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 356. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, Umar said, "When the Prophet died I said to Abu Bakr, 'Let us go to our Ansari brethren.' We met two pious men from them, who had fought in the battle of Badr. When I mentioned this to Urwa bin Zubair, he said, 'Those two pious men were Awaim bin Sa'ida and Man bin Adi.'" Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 357. Narrated by Qais, the Badr warriors were given 5,000 dirhams each, yearly. Umar said, "I will surely give them more than what I will give to others." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 358. Narrated by Jubair bin Mutah trademark I heard the Prophet reciting Surat at-Tur in Maghrib prayer, and that was at a time when belief was first planted in my heart. The Prophet, while speaking about the war prisoners of Badr, said, "Were al-Mutim bin Adi alive and interceded with me for these filthy people, I would definitely forgive them for his sake." Narrated said bin al-Musayyib, "When the first civil strife, in Islam, took place because of the murder of Uthman, it left none of the Badr warriors alive. When the second civil strife, that is the Battle of Al-Hara, took place, it left none of the Hudaybiyah treaty companions alive. Then the third civil strife took place and it did not subside till it had exhausted all the strength of the people." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 359. Narrated by Yunus bin Yazid, I heard Az-Zuri saying, "I heard Urwa bin Zubair." Said bin al-Musayyib, Alqamah bin Waqtas and Ubaydullah bin Abdullah each narrating part of the narrative concerning Aisha the wife of the Prophet. Aisha said, "When I and Mistah were returning, Mistah stumbled by treading on the end of her robe, and on that she said, 'May Mistah be ruined.' I said, 'You have said a bad thing, you curse a man who took part in the battle of Badr.'" Az-Zuri then narrated the narration of the lie, forged against Aisha. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 360. Narrated by Ibn Shihab, these were the battles of Allah's Apostle, which he fought, and while mentioning the Badr battle, he said, while the corpses of the pagans were being thrown into the well, Allah's Apostle said to them, "Have you found what your Lord promised true?" Abdullah said, "Some of the Prophet's companions said, 'O Allah's Apostle, you are addressing dead people.' Allah's Apostle replied, 'You do not hear what I am saying, better than they.'" The total number of Muslim fighters from Quraysh, who fought in the Battle of Badr and were given their share of the booty, were 81 men. Az-Zubair said, when their shares were distributed, their number was 101 men. But Allah knows it better. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 361. Narrated by Az-Zubair, on the day of Badr, Qurayshi emigrants received 100 shares of the war booty. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 362. Narrated by Ibn Umar, Bani an-Nadir and Bani Qurayza fought against the Prophet violating their peace treaty, so the Prophet exiled Bani an-Nadir and allowed Bani Qurayza to remain at their places, in Medina, taking nothing from them till they fought against the Prophet again. He then killed their men and distributed their women, children, and property among the Muslims, but some of them came to the Prophet and he granted them safety, and they embraced Islam. He exiled all the Jews from Medina. They were the Jews of Bani Qanuqa, the tribe of Abdullah bin Salam, and the Jews of Bani Haritha and all the other Jews of Medina. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 363. Narrated by Said bin Jubair, I mentioned to Ibn Abbas Surat Hashir. He said, call it Surat Nader. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 364. Narrated by Anas bin Malik, some people used to allot some date palm trees to the Prophet as gift till he conquered Banu Qurayza and Bani Nadir, whereupon he started returning their date palms to them. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 365. Narrated by Ibn Umar, Allah's apostle had the date palm trees of Bani al-Nadir burnt and cut down at a place called al-Buwaira. Allah then revealed, what you cut down of the date palm trees, of the enemy, or you left them standing on their stems. It was by Allah's permission. 59.5. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 366. Narrated by Ibn Umar, the Prophet burnt the date palm trees of Bani and Nadir. Hassan bin Thabit said the following poetic verses about this event: the terrible burning of al-Buwaira has been received indifferently by the nobles of Bani Luay, the masters and nobles of Quraysh. Abu Sufyan bin al-Harith, i.e. the Prophet's cousin who was still a disbeliever then, replied to Hassan, saying in poetic verses, may Allah bless that burning and set all its, i.e. Medina's, parts on burning fire. You will see who is far from it, i.e. al-Buwaira, and which of our lands will be harmed by it, i.e. the burning of al-Buwaira. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 367. Narrated by Malik bin Aus al-Haydathan an-Nasri, that once Umar bin al-Khattab called him, and while he was sitting with him, his gatekeeper, Yarfa, came and said, will you admit Uthman, Abdurrahman bin Auf, Aziz Zubair and Sad bin Abi Waqtas, who are waiting for your permission? Umar said, yes, let them come in. After a while, Yarfa came again and said, will you admit Ali and Abbas who are asking your permission? Umar said, yes. So, when the two entered, Abbas said, O chief of the believers, judge between me and this, i.e. Ali. Both of them had a dispute regarding the property of Bani and Nadir which Allah had given to his apostle as fai, i.e. booty gained without fighting. Ali and Abbas started reproaching each other. The present people, i.e. Uthman and his companions, said, O chief of the believers, give your verdict in their case and relieve each from the other. Umar said, wait, I beseech you, by Allah, by whose permission both the heaven and the earth stand fast. Do you know that Allah's apostle said, we, prophets, our properties are not to be inherited, and whatever we leave, is to be spent in charity, and he said it about himself. They, i.e. Uthman and his company, said, he did say it. Umar then turned towards Ali and Abbas and said, I beseech you both, by Allah, do you know that Allah's apostle said this? They replied in the affirmative. He said, now I am talking to you about this matter. Allah the Glorified favored his apostle with something of this fai, i.e. booty won without fighting, which he did not give to anybody else. Allah said, and what Allah gave to his apostle, fai booty, from them, for which you made no expedition with either cavalry or camelry. But Allah gives power to his apostles over whomsoever he will, and Allah is able to do all things. 59.6. So this property was especially granted to Allah's apostle. But by Allah, the Prophet neither took it all for himself only, nor deprived you of it, but he gave it to all of you and distributed it amongst you till only this remained out of it. And from this Allah's apostle used to spend the yearly maintenance for his family, and whatever used to remain, he used to spend it where Allah's property is spent, i.e. in charity. Allah's apostle kept on acting like that during all his life. Then he died, and Abu Bakr said, I am the successor of Allah's apostle. So he, i.e. Abu Bakr, took charge of this property and disposed of it in the same manner as Allah's apostle used to do, and all of you, at that time, knew all about it. Then Umar turned towards Ali and Abbas and said, "You both remember that Abu Bakr disposed of it in the way you have described, and Allah knows that, in that matter, he was sincere, pious, rightly guided and the follower of the right. Then Allah caused Abu Bakr to die, and I said, I am the successor of Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr. So I kept this property in my possession for the first 2 years of my rule, i.e. caliphate, and I used to dispose of it in the same way as Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr used to do, and Allah knows that I have been sincere, pious, rightly guided and the follower of the right. In this mat later on both of you, i.e. Ali and Abbas, came to me, and the claim of you both was one and the same, O Abbas. You also came to me. So I told you both that Allah's apostle said, our property is not inherited, but whatever we leave is to be given in charity. Then when I thought that I should better hand over this property to you both, or the condition that you will promise and pledge before Allah that you will dispose it off in the same way as Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr did, and as I have done since the beginning of my caliphate, or else you should not speak to me about it. So, both of you said to me, hand it over to us on this condition. And on this condition I handed it over to you. Do you want me now to give a decision other than that decision? By Allah, with whose permission both the sky and the earth stand fast, I will never give any decision other than that decision, till the last hour is established. But if you are unable to manage it, i.e. that property, then return it to me, and I will manage on your behalf. The sub-narrator said, I told Urwa bin Zubair of this hadith, and he said, Malik bin Aus has told the truth. I heard Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, saying, the wives of the Prophet sent Uthman to Abu Bakr demanding from him their 1/8 of the fai which Allah had granted to his apostle. But I used to oppose them and say to them, will you not fear Allah? Don't you know that the Prophet used to say, our property is not inherited, but whatever we leave is to be given in charity? The Prophet mentioned that regarding himself. He added, the family of Muhammad can take their sustenance from this property. So the wives of the Prophet stopped demanding it when I told them of that. So, this property, of Sadaqah, was in the hands of Ali, who withheld it from Abbas and overpowered him. Then it came in the hands of Hassan bin Ali, then in the hands of Husayn bin Ali, and then in the hands of Ali bin Husayn and Hassan bin Hassan, and each of the last two used to manage it in turn. Then it came in the hands of Zayd bin Hassan, and it was truly the Sadaqah of Allah's apostle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 368. Narrated by Aisha, Fatima and Al-Abbas came to Abu Bakr, claiming their inheritance of the Prophet's land of Fadak and his share from Khaybar. Abu Bakr said, I heard the Prophet saying, our property is not inherited, and whatever we leave is to be given in charity. But the family of Muhammad can take their sustenance from this property. By Allah, I would love to do good to the kith and kin of Allah's apostle rather than to my own kith and kin. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 369. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, Allah's apostle said, who is willing to kill Kabi bin al-Ashraf who has hurt Allah and his apostle? Thereupon Muhammad bin Maslama got up saying, O Allah's apostle, would you like that I kill him? The Prophet said, yes. Muhammad bin Maslama said, then allow me to say a false thing, i.e. to deceive Kab. The Prophet said, you may say it. Then Muhammad bin Maslama went to Kab and said, that man, i.e. Muhammad, demands Sadaqah, i.e. zakat, from us, and he has troubled us, and I have come to borrow something from you. On that, Kab said, by Allah, you will get tired of him. Muhammad bin Maslama said, now as we have followed him, we do not want to leave him unless and until we see how his end is going to be. Now we want you to lend us a camel load or two of food. Some difference between narrators about a camel load or two. Kab said, yes, I will lend you, but you should mortgage something to me. Muhammad bin Maslama and his companion said, what do you want? Kabi replied, mortgage your women to me. They said, how can we mortgage our women to you and you are the most handsome of the Arabs? Ka'b said, then mortgage your sons to me. They said, how can we mortgage our sons to you? Later they would be abused by the people saying that so and so has been mortgaged for a camel load of food. That would cause us great disgrace, but we will mortgage our arms to you. Muhammad bin Maslama and his companion promised Ka'b that Muhammad would return to him. He came to Ka'b at night along with Ka'b's foster brother, Abu Naila. Ka'b invited them to come into his fort, and then he went down to them. His wife asked him, where are you going at this time? Ka'b replied, none but Muhammad bin Maslama and my foster brother Abu Naila have come. His wife said, I hear a voice as if dropping blood is from him. Ka'b said, they are none but my brother Muhammad bin Maslama and my foster brother Abu Naila. A generous man should respond to a call at night even if invited to be killed. Muhammad bin Maslama went with 2 men. Some narrators mention the men as Abu bin Jabr, Al-Harith bin Aus and Abad bin Bishr. So Muhammad bin Maslama went in together with 2 men, and sailed to them. When Ka'b comes, I will touch his hair and smell it, and when you see that I have got hold of his head, strip him. I will let you smell his head. Ka'b bin al-Ashraf came down to them wrapped in his clothes, and diffusing perfume. Muhammad bin Maslama said, I have never smelt a better scent than this. Ka'b replied, I have got the best Arab women who know how to use the high class of perfume. Muhammad bin Maslama requested Ka'b, will you allow me to smell your head? Ka'b said, yes. Muhammad smelled it and made his companions smell it as well. Then he requested Ka'b again, will you let me smell your head? Ka'b said, yes. When Muhammad got a strong hold of him, he said to his companions, get at him. So they killed him and went to the Prophet and informed him. Abu Rafi was killed after Ka'b bin al-Ashraf. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 370. Narrated by Al-Bara bin Azib, Allah's apostle sent a group of persons to Abu Rafi. Abdullah bin Atik entered his house at night, while he was sleeping, and killed him. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 371. Narrated by Al-Bara bin Azib, Allah's apostle sent some men from the Ангիր to kill Abu Rafi, the Jew, and appointed Abdullah bin Atik as their leader. Abu Rafi used to hurt Allah's apostle and help his enemies against him. He lived in his castle in the land of Hijaz. When those men approached the castle, after the sun had set and the people had brought back their livestock to their homes, Abdullah bin Atik said to his companions, sit down at your places. I am going, and I will try to play a trick on the gatekeeper so that I may enter the castle. So Abdullah proceeded towards the castle, and when he approached the gate, he covered himself with his clothes, pretending to answer the call of nature. The people had gone in, and the gatekeeper considered Abdullah as one of the castle's servants, addressing him saying, O Allah's servant, enter if you wish, for I want to close the gate. Abdullah added in his story, so I went in the castle, and hid myself. When the people got inside, the gatekeeper closed the gate and hung the keys on a fixed wooden peg. I got up and took the keys and opened the gate. Some people were staying late at night with Abu Rafi for a pleasant night chat in a room of his. When his companions of nightly entertainment went away, I ascended to him, and whenever I opened a door, I closed it from inside. I said to myself, should these people discover my presence, they will not be able to catch me till I have killed him. So I reached him and found him sleeping in a dark house amidst his family. I could not recognize his location in the house. So I shouted, O Abu Rafi! Abu Rafi said, who is it? I proceeded towards the source of the voice and hit him with the sword, and because of my perplexity, I could not kill him. He cried loudly, and I came out of the house and waited for a while, and then went to him again and said, what is this voice, O Abu Rafi? He said, woe to your mother! A man in my house has hit me with a sword. I again hit him severely, but I did not kill him. Then I drove the point of the sword into his belly, and pressed it through, till it touched his back, and I realized that I have killed him. I then opened the doors one by one till I reached the staircase, and thinking that I had reached the ground, I stepped out and fell down and got my leg broken in a moonlit night. I tied my leg with a turban and proceeded on till I sat at the gate, and said, I will not go out tonight till I know that I have killed him. So, when, early in the morning, the cock crowed, the announcer of the casualty stood on the wall saying, I announce the death of Abu Rafi, the merchant of Hijaz. Thereupon I went to my companions and said, let us save ourselves, for Allah has killed Abu Rafi. So I, along with my companions, proceeded and went to the Prophet and described the whole story to him. He said, stretch out your broken leg. I stretched it out and he rubbed it and it became all right as if I had never had any ailment whatsoever. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 372. Narrated by Al-Bara, Allah's Apostle sent Abdullah bin Atik and Abdullah bin Utbah with a group of men to Abu Rafi, to kill him. They proceeded till they approached his castle, whereupon Abdullah bin Atik said to them, wait here, and in the meantime I will go and see. Abdullah said later on, I played a trick in order to enter the castle. By chance, they lost a donkey of theirs and came out carrying a flaming light to search for it. I was afraid that they would recognize me, so I covered my head and legs and pretended to answer the call to nature. The gatekeeper called, whoever wants to come in, should come in before I close the gate. So I went in and hid myself in a stall of a donkey near the gate of the castle. They took their supper with Abu Rafi and had a chat till late at night. Then they went back to their homes. When the voices vanished and I no longer detected any movement, I came out. I had seen where the gatekeeper had kept the key of the castle in a hole in the wall. I took it and unlocked the gate of the castle, saying to myself, if these people should notice me, I will run away easily. Then I locked all the doors of their houses from outside while they were inside, and ascended to Abu Rafi by a staircase. I saw the house in complete darkness with its light off, and I could not know where the man was. So I called, O Abu Rafi. He replied, who is it? I proceeded towards the voice and hit him. He cried loudly, but my blow was futile. Then I came to him, pretending to help him, saying with a different tone of my voice, what is wrong with you, O Abu Rafi? He said, are you not surprised? Woe on your mother! A man has come to me and hit me with a sword. So again I aimed at him and hit him, but the blow proved futile again, and on that Abu Rafi cried loudly and his wife got up. I came again and changed my voice as if I were a helper, and found Abu Rafi lying straight on his back, so I drove the sword into his belly and bent on it till I heard the sound of a bone break. Then I came out, filled with astonishment, and went to the staircase to descend, but I fell down from it and got my leg dislocated. I bandaged it and went to my companions limping. I said to them, go and tell Allah's apostle of this good news, but I will not leave this place till I hear the news of his, i.e. Abu Rafi's, death. When dawn broke, an announcer of death got over the wall and announced, I convey to you the news of Abu Rafi's death. I got up and proceeded without feeling any pain till I caught up with my companions before they reached the Prophet, to whom I conveyed the good news. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 373. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, on the day of Uhud. The Prophet said, this is Gabriel holding the head of his horse and equipped with war material. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 374. Narrated by Uqba bin Amir, Allah's apostle offered the funeral prayers of the martyrs of Uhud 8 years after their death, as if bidding farewell to the living and the dead. Then he ascended the pulpit and said, I am your predecessor before you, and I am a witness on you, and your promised place to meet me will be Al-Hadid, i.e. the tank, on the day of resurrection, and I am now, looking at it from this place of mine. I am not afraid that you will worship others besides Allah, but I am afraid that worldly life will tempt you and cause you to compete with each other for it. That was the last look which I cast on Allah's apostle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 374. Narrated by Uqba bin Amir, Allah's apostle offered the funeral prayers of the martyrs of Uhud 8 years after their death, as if bidding farewell to the living and the dead. Then he ascended the pulpit and said, I am your predecessor before you, and I am a witness on you, and your promised place to meet me will be Al-Hawd, i.e. the tank, on the day of resurrection, and I am, now, looking at it from this place of mine. I am not afraid that you will worship others besides Allah, but I am afraid that worldly life will tempt you and cause you to compete with each other for it. That was the last look which I cast on Allah's apostle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 375. Narrated by Al-Bara, we faced the pagans on that day, of the Battle of Uhud, and the Prophet placed a batch of archers, at a special place, and appointed Abdullah, bin Jubair, as their commander and said, do not leave this place, and if you should see us conquering the enemy, do not leave this place, and if you should see them conquering us, do not come to help us. So, when we faced the enemy, they took to their heel till I saw their women running towards the mountain, lifting up their clothes from their legs, revealing their leg bangles. The Muslims started saying, the booty, the booty. Abdullah bin Jubair said, the Prophet had taken a firm promise from me not to leave this place. But his companions refused to stay. So when they refused to stay there, Allah confused them so that they could not know where to go, and they suffered 70 casualties. Abu Sufyan ascended a high place and said, is Muhammad present amongst the people? The Prophet said, do not answer him. Abu Sufyan said, is the son of Abu Quhafa present among the people? The Prophet said, do not answer him. Abd Sufyan said, is the son of Al-Khattab amongst the people? He then added, all these people have been killed, for, were they alive, they would have replied. On that, Umar could not help saying, you are a liar, O enemy of Allah. Allah has kept what will make you unhappy. Abu Sufyan said, superior may be Hubal. On that the Prophet said, to his companions, reply to him. They asked, what may we say? He said, say, Allah is more elevated and more majestic. Abu Sufyan said, we have the idol, Al-Uwa, whereas you have no Uwa. The Prophet said, to his companions, reply to him. They said, what may we say? The Prophet said, say, Allah is our helper and you have no helper. Abu Sufyan said, this day compensates for our loss at Badr and, in the battle, the victory is always undecided and shared in turns by the belligerents. You will see some of your dead men mutilated, but neither did I urge this action, nor am I sorry for it. Narrated Jabir, some people took wine in the morning of the day of Uhud and were then killed as martyrs. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 376. Narrated by Sa'd bin Ibrahim, a meal was brought to Abdurrahman bin Auf while he was fasting. He said, Musab bin Umar was martyred, and he was better than I, yet he was shrouded in a burda, i.e. a sheet, so that, if his head was covered, his feet became naked, and if his feet were covered, his head became naked. Abdurrahman added, Hamza was martyred and he was better than one. Then worldly wealth was bestowed upon us and we were given thereof too much. We are afraid that the reward of our deeds have been given to us in this life. Abdurrahman then started weeping so much that he left the food. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 377. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, on the day of the Battle of Uhud, a man came to the Prophet and said, can you tell me where I will be if I should get martyred? The Prophet replied, in paradise. The man threw away some dates he was carrying in his hand, and fought till he was martyred. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 378. Narrated by Khabbab bin al-Art, we migrated in the company of Allah's Apostle, seeking Allah's pleasure. So our reward became due and sure with Allah. Some of us have been dead without enjoying anything of their rewards, here, and one of them was Mus'ab bin Umar, who was martyred on the day of the Battle of Uhud, and did not leave anything except a namarah, i.e. a sheet in which he was shrouded. If we covered his head with it, his feet became naked, and if we covered his feet with it, his head became naked. So the Prophet said to us, cover his head with it and put some ангիր, i.e. a kind of grass, over his feet, or throw ангիր over his feet. But some amongst us have got the fruits of their labor ripened, and they are collecting them. Narrated Anas, his uncle, Anas bin Nadr, was absent from the battle of Badr, and he said, I was absent from the first battle of the Prophet, i.e. Badr battle, and if Allah should let me participate in a battle with the Prophet, Allah will see how strongly I will fight. So he encountered the day of Uhud battle. The Muslims fled, and he said, O Allah, I appeal to you to excuse me for what these people, i.e. the Muslims, have done, and I am clear from what the pagans have done. Then he went forward with his sword and met Sa'd bin Mu'adh, fleeing, and asked him, Where are you going, O Sa'd? I detect a smell of paradise before Uhud. Then he proceeded on and was martyred. Nobody was able to recognize him till his sister recognized him by a mole on his body or by the tips of his fingers. He had over 80 wounds caused by stabbing, striking or shooting with arrows. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 379. Narrated by Zayd bin Thabit, when we wrote the Holy Quran, I missed one of the verses of Surat al-Ahzab which I used to hear Allah's Apostle reciting. Then we searched for it and found it with Huzaymah bin Thabit al-Ansari. The verse was, Among the believers are men who have been true to their covenant with Allah, of them, some have fulfilled their obligations to Allah, i.e. they have been killed in Allah's cause, and some of them are, still, waiting. 33.23, so we wrote this in its place in the Quran. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 380. Narrated by Zayd bin Thabit, when the Prophet set out for the battle of Uhud, some of those who had gone out with him returned. The companions of the Prophet were divided into two groups. One group said, We will fight them, i.e. the enemy, and the other group said, We will not fight them. So there came the divine revelation, O Muslims! Then what is the matter within you that you are divided into two parties about the hypocrites? Allah has cast them back to disbelief, because of what they have earned. 4.88, on that, the Prophet said, that is Taba, i.e. the city of Medina, which clears one from one's sins as the fire expels the impurities of silver. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 381. Narrated by Jabir, this verse, when two of your parties almost decided to fall away, was revealed in our connection, i.e. Bani Salama and Bani Haritha, and I would not have liked that, if it was not revealed, for Allah said, but Allah was their protector. 3.122. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 382. Narrated by Jabir, Allah's Apostle said to me, Have you got married, O Jabir? I replied, Yes. He asked, What, a virgin or a matron? I replied, Not a virgin but a matron. He said, Why did you not marry a young girl who would have fondled with you? I replied, O Allah's Apostle! My father was martyred on the day of Uhud and left 9 orphan daughters who are my 9 sisters, so I disliked to have another young girl of their age, but I sought an elderly woman who could comb their hair and look after them. The Prophet said, You have done the right thing. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 383. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, that his father was martyred on the day of the Battle of Uhud and was in debt and left 6 orphan daughters. Jabir added, when the season of plucking the dates came, I went to Allah's apostle and said, you know that my father was martyred on the day of Uhud, and he was heavily in debt, and I would like that the creditors should see you. The Prophet said, go and pile every kind of dates apart. I did so and called him, i.e. the Prophet. When the creditors saw him, they started claiming their debts from me then in such a harsh manner, as they had never done before. So when he saw their attitude, he went round the biggest heap of dates thrice, and then sat over it and said, O Jabir, call your companions, i.e. the creditors. Then he kept on measuring, and giving, to the creditors, their due, till Allah paid all the debt of my father. I would have been satisfied to retain nothing of those dates for my sisters after Allah had paid the debts of my father. But Allah saved all the heaps of dates, so that when I looked at the heap where the Prophet had been sitting, it seemed as if a single date had not been taken away thereof. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 384. Narrated by Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, I saw Allah's apostle on the day of the Battle of Uhud accompanied by 2 men fighting on his behalf. They were dressed in white and were fighting as bravely as possible. I had never seen them before, nor did I see them later on. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 385. Narrated by Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, the Prophet took out a quiver of arrows for me on the day of Uhud and said, throw arrows, let my father and mother be sacrificed for you. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 386. Narrated by Sa'd, Allah's apostle mentioned both his father and mother for me on the day of the Battle of Uhud. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 387. Narrated by Ibn al-Musayyib, Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas said, Allah's apostle mentioned both his father and mother for me on the day of the Battle of Uhud. He meant when the Prophet said, to Sa'd, while the latter was fighting, let my father and mother be sacrificed for you. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 388. Narrated by Ali, I have never heard the Prophet mentioning both his father and mother for anybody other than Sa'd. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 389. Narrated by Ali, I have never heard the Prophet mentioning his father and mother for anybody other than Sa'd bin Malik. I heard him saying on the day of Uhud, O Sa'd, throw arrows. Let my father and mother be sacrificed for you, Euro. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 390. Narrated by Mudamir's father, Uthman said that on the day of the Battle of Uhud, none remained with the Prophet but Talha and Sa'd. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 391. Narrated by Asib bin Yazid, I have been in the company of Abdurrahman bin Auf, Talha bin Ubaydullah, Al-Miqdad and Sa'd, and I heard none of them narrating anything from the Prophet excepting the fact that I heard Talha narrating about the day of Uhud, battle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 392. Narrated by Qais, I saw Talha's paralyzed hand with which he had protected the Prophet on the day of Uhud. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 393. Narrated by Anas, when it was the day of Uhud, the people left the Prophet while Abu Talha was in front of the Prophet shielding him with his leather shield. Abu Talha was a skillful archer who used to shoot violently. He broke 2 or 3 arrow bows on that day. If a man carrying a quiver full of arrows passed by, the Prophet would say to him, scatter its contents for Abu Talha. The Prophet would raise his head to look at the enemy, whereupon Abu Talha would say, let my father and mother be sacrificed for you. Do not raise your head, lest an arrow of the enemy should hit you. Let my neck be struck rather than your neck. I saw Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr, and Sulaim rolling up their dresses so that I saw their leg bangles while they were carrying water skins on their backs and emptying them in the mouths of the wounded people. They would return to refill them and again empty them in the mouths of the wounded people. The sword fell from Abu Talha's hand twice or thrice, on that day. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 394. Narrated by Aisha, when it was the day of Uhud, the pagans were defeated. Then Satan, Allah's curse be upon him, cried loudly, O Allah's worshippers, beware of what is behind. On that, the front files of the Muslim forces turned their backs and started fighting with the back files. Hudhaifa looked, and on seeing his father Al-Yaman, he shouted, O Allah's worshippers, my father, my father. But by Allah, they did not stop till they killed him. Hudhaifa said, May Allah forgive you. The sub-narrator, Urway, said, By Allah, Hudhaifa continued asking Allah's forgiveness for the killers of his father till he departed to Allah, i.e. died. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 395. Narrated by Uthman bin Mawhab, a man came to perform the Hajj to Allah's house. Seeing some people sitting, he said, Who are these sitting people? Somebody said, They are the people of Quraysh. He said, Who is the old man? They said, Ibn Umar. He went to him and said, I want to ask you about something, will you tell me about it? I ask you with the respect due to the sanctity of this sacred house, do you know that Uthman bin Affan fled on the day of Uhud? Ibn Umar said, Yes. He said, Do you know that he, i.e. Uthman, was absent from the Badr battle, and did not join it? Ibn Umar said, Yes. He said, Do you know that he failed to be present at the Ridwan Pledge of Allegiance, i.e. Pledge of Allegiance at Hudaybiyah, and did not witness it? Ibn Umar replied, Yes. He then said, Allahu Akbar. Ibn Umar said, Come along, I will inform you and explain to you what you have asked. As for the flight of Uthman, on the day of Uhud, I testify that Allah forgave him. As regards his absence from the Badr battle, he was married to the daughter of Allah's apostle and she was ill, so the Prophet said to him, You will have such reward as a man who has fought the Badr battle will get, and will also have the same share of the booty. As for his absence from the Ridwan Pledge of Allegiance, if there had been anybody more respected by the Meccans than Uthman bin Affan, the Prophet would surely have sent that man instead of Uthman. So the Prophet sent him, i.e. Uthman, to Mecca, and the Ridwan Pledge of Allegiance took place after Uthman had gone to Mecca. The Prophet raised his right hand saying, This is the hand of Uthman, and clapped it over his other hand and said, This is for Uthman. Ibn Umar then said, to the man, Go now, after taking this information. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 396. Narrated by Al-Bara bin Azib, the Prophet appointed Abdullah bin Jubair as the commander of the cavalry archers on the day of the Battle of Uhud. Then they returned defeated, and that what is referred to by Allah's statement, and the Apostle, Muhammad, in your rear was calling you. 3.153. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 397. Narrated by Salim's father, that he heard Allah's Apostle, when raising his head from bowing of the first rak'ah of the morning prayer, saying, O Allah! Curse so and so and so and so, after he had said, Allah hears him who sends his praises to him. Our Lord, all the praises are for you. So Allah revealed, Not for you, O Muhammad. Till the end of verse, they are indeed wrongdoers. 3.128, Salim bin Abdullah said Allah's Apostle used to invoke evil upon Safwan bin Umayyah, Suhail bin Amr and Al-Harith bin Hisham. So the verse was revealed, Not for you, O Muhammad. Till the end of verse, for they are indeed wrongdoers. 3.128. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 398. Narrated by Thalaba bin Abi Malik, Umar bin al-Khattab distributed woolen clothes amongst some women of Medina, and a nice woolen garment remained. Some of those who were sitting with him, said, O chief of the believers! Give it to the daughter of Allah's apostle who is with you, and by that, they meant Kulthum, the daughter of Ali. Umar said, Salat has got more right than she. Sa'd was amongst those Ansari women who had given the pledge of allegiance to Allah's apostle. Umar added, she, i.e. Salat, used to carry the filled water skins for us on the day of the Battle of Uhud. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 399. Narrated by Jafar bin Amr bin Umayyah, I went out with Ubaydullah bin Adi al-Qur. When we reached Hims, i.e. a town in Syria, Ubaydullah bin Adi said, to me, would you like to see Washi so that we may ask him about the killing of Hamza? I replied, yes. Washi used to live in Hims. We inquired about him and somebody said to us, he is that in the shade of his palace, as if he were a full water skin. So we went up to him, and when we were at a short distance from him, we greeted him and he greeted us in return. Ubaydullah was wearing his turban and Washi could not see except his eyes and feet. Ubaydullah said, O Washi! Do you know me? Washi looked at him and then said, no, by Allah. But I know that Adi bin al-Qur married a woman called Kittle, the daughter of Abu Alaz, and she delivered a boy for him at Mecca, and I looked for a wet nurse for that child. Once, I carried that child along with his mother and then I handed him over to her, and your feet resemble that child's feet. Then Ubaydullah uncovered his face and said, to Washi, will you tell us, the story of, the killing of Hamza? Washi replied, yes, Hamza killed Tuwaima bin Adi bin al-Qur at Badr, battle, so my master, Jubair bin Mut'im said to me, if you kill Hamza in revenge for my uncle, then you will be set free. When the people set out, for the battle of Uhud, in the year of Ainan. Ainan is a mountain near the mountain of Uhud, and between it and Uhud there is a valley. I went out with the people for the battle. When the army aligned for the fight, Sibba came out and said, is there any, Muslim, to accept my challenge to a duel? Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib came out and said, O Sibba! O Ibn Anmar, the one who circumcises other ladies! Do you challenge Allah and his apostle? Then Hamza attacked and killed him, causing him to be non-extant like the bygone yesterday. I hid myself under a rock, and when he, i.e. Hamza, came near me, I threw my spear at him, driving it into his umbilicus so that it came out through his buttocks, causing him to die. When all the people returned to Mecca, I too returned with them. I stayed in Mecca till Islam spread in it, i.e. Mecca. Then I left for Taif, and when the people of Taif sent their messengers to Allah's apostle, I was told that the Prophet did not harm the messengers, so I too went out with them till I reached Allah's apostle. When he saw me, he said, are you Washi? I said, yes. He said, was it you who killed Hamza? I replied, what happened is what you have been told of. He said, can you hide your face from me? So I went out when Allah's apostle died, and Musaylama al-Kadhdhab appeared, claiming to be a prophet. I said, I will go out to Musaylama so that I may kill him, and make amends for killing Hamza. So I went out with the people, to fight Musaylama and his followers, and then famous events took place concerning that battle. Suddenly I saw a man, i.e. Musaylama, standing near a gap in a wall. He looked like an ash-colored camel and his hair was disheveled. So I threw my spear at him, driving it into his chest in between his breasts till it passed out through his shoulders, and then an Ansari man attacked him and struck him on the head with a sword. Abdullah bin Umar said, a slave girl on the roof of a house said, alas! The chief of the believers, i.e. Musaylama, has been killed by a black slave. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 400. Narrated by Abu Huraira, Allah's apostle, pointing to his broken canine tooth, said, Allah's wrath has become severe on the people who harmed his prophet. Allah's wrath has become severe on the man who is killed by the apostle of Allah in Allah's cause. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 401. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, Allah's wrath became severe on him whom the Prophet had killed in Allah's cause. Allah's wrath became severe on the people who caused the face of Allah's Prophet to bleed. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 402. Narrated by Abu Hazim, that he heard Sahl bin Sa'd being asked about the wounds of Allah's apostle saying, By Allah, I know who washed the wounds of Allah's apostle and who poured water, for washing them, and with what he was treated. Sahl added, Fatima, the daughter of Allah's apostle used to wash the wounds, and Ali bin Abi Talib used to pour water from a shield. When Fatima saw that the water aggravated the bleeding, she took a piece of a mat, burnt it, and inserted its ashes into the wounds so that the blood was congealed, and bleeding stopped. His canine tooth got broken on that day, and face was wounded, and his helmet was broken on his head. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 403. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, Allah's wrath gets severe on a person killed by a prophet, and Allah's wrath became severe on him who had caused the face of Allah's apostle to bleed. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 404. Narrated by Aisha, regarding the holy verse, those who responded to the call of Allah and the Apostle, Muhammad, after being wounded, for those of them who did good deeds and refrained from wrong, there is a great reward. 3.172. She said to Urwa, O my nephew, your father, Zubair, and Abu Bakr were amongst them, i.e. those who responded to the call of Allah and the Apostle on the day of the Battle of Uhud. When Allah's Apostle suffered what he suffered on the day of Uhud and the pagans left, the Prophet was afraid that they might return. So he said, Who will go on their, i.e. pagans, track? He then selected 70 men from amongst them, for this purpose. The sub-narrator added, Abu Bakr and Zubair were amongst them. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 405. Narrated by Qatada, we do not know of any tribe amongst the Arab tribes who lost more martyrs than Al-Ansar, and they will have superiority on the day of resurrection. Anas bin Malik told us that 70 from the Ansar were martyred on the day of Uhud, and 70 on the day of the Battle of Barmahuna, and 70 on the day of Al-Yamamah. Anas added, the Battle of Barmahuna took place during the lifetime of Allah's Apostle and the Battle of Al-Yamamah, during the Caliphate of Abu Bakr, and it was the day when Musaylama al-Kadhdhab was killed. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 406. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, Allah's Apostle used to shroud 2 martyrs of Uhud in one sheet and then say, which of them knew Quran more? When one of the 2 was pointed out, he would put him first in the grave. Then he said, I will be a witness for them on the day of resurrection. He ordered them to be buried with their blood on their bodies. Neither was the funeral prayer offered for them, nor were they washed. Jabir added, when my father was martyred, I started weeping and uncovering his face. The companions of the Prophet stopped me from doing so, but the Prophet did not stop me. Then the Prophet said, O Jabir, don't weep over him, for the angels kept uncovering him with their wings till his body was carried away, for burial. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 407. Narrated by Abu Musa, the Prophet said, I saw in a dream that I moved a sword and its blade got broken, and that symbolized the casualties which the believers suffered on the day of Uhud. Then I moved it again, and it became as perfect as it had been, and that symbolized the conquest of Mecca, which Allah helped us to achieve, and the union of all the believers. I, also, saw cows in the dream, and what Allah does is always beneficial. Those cows appeared to symbolize the faithful believers, who were martyred, on the day of Uhud. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 408. Narrated by Kebab, we migrated with the Prophet for Allah's cause, so our reward became due with Allah. Some of us passed away, i.e. died, without enjoying anything from their reward, and one of them was Musab bin Umar, who was killed, i.e. martyred, on the day of Uhud. He did not leave behind except a sheet of striped woolen cloth. If we covered his head with it, his feet became naked, and if we covered his feet with it, his head became naked. The Prophet said to us, cover his head with it and put ангիր, i.e. a kind of grass, over his feet, or said, put some ангիր over his feet. But some of us have got their fruits ripened, and they are collecting them. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 409. Narrated by Anas, the Prophet said, this is a mountain that loves us and is loved by us. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 410. Narrated by Anas bin Malik, when the mountain of Uhud appeared before Allah's apostle, he said, this is a mountain that loves us and is loved by us. O Allah! Abraham made Mecca a sanctuary, and I have made Medina, i.e. the area between its two mountains, a sanctuary as well. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 411. Narrated by Uqba, one day the Prophet went out and offered the funeral prayer for the people, i.e. martyrs, of Uhud, as he used to offer a funeral prayer for any dead person, and then, after returning, he ascended the pulpit and said, I am your predecessor before you, and I am a witness upon you, and I am looking at my tank just now, and I have been given the keys of the treasures of the world, or the keys of the world. By Allah, I am not afraid that you will worship others besides Allah after me, but I am afraid that you will compete with each other for the pleasures of this world. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 412. Narrated by Abu Huraira, the Prophet sent a Sariya of spies and appointed Asim bin Thabit, the grandfather of Asim bin Umar bin al-Khattab, as their leader. So they set out, and when they reached a place between Usfan and Mecca, they were mentioned to one of the branch tribes of Bani Hudayl called Liyan. So, about 100 archers followed their traces till they, i.e. the archers, came to a journey station where they, i.e. Asim and his companions, had encamped and found stones of dates they had brought as journey food from Medina. The archers said, these are the dates of Medina, and followed their traces till they took them over. When Asim and his companions were not able to go ahead, they went up a high place, and their pursuers encircled them and said, you have a covenant and a promise that if you come down to us, we will not kill any one of you. Asim said, as for me, I will never come down on the security of an infidel. O Allah! Inform your Prophet about us. So they fought with them till they killed Asim along with 7 of his companions with arrows, and there remained Khubayb, Zayd, and another man to whom they gave a promise and a covenant. So when the infidels gave them the covenant and promise, they came down. When they captured them, they opened the strings of their arrow bows and tied them with it. The third man who was with them said, this is the first breach in the covenant, and refused to accompany them. They dragged him and tried to make him accompany them, but he refused, and they killed him. Then they proceeded on taking Khubayb and Zayd till they sold them in Mecca. The sons of Al-Harith bin Amr bin Nawfal bought Khubayb. It was Khubayb who had killed Al-Harith bin Amr on the day of Badr. Khubayb stayed with them for a while as a captive till they decided unanimously to kill him. At that time, Khubayb borrowed a razor from one of the daughters of Al-Harith to shave his pubic hair. She gave it to him. She said later on, I was heedless of a little baby of mine, who moved towards Khubayb, and when it reached him, he put it on his thigh. When I saw it, I got scared so much that Khubayb noticed my distress while he was carrying the razor in his hand. He said, are you afraid that I will kill it? Allah willing, I will never do that. Later on she used to say, I have never seen a captive better than Qubayb. Once I saw him eating from a bunch of grapes, although at that time no fruits were available at Mecca, and he was fettered with iron chains, and in fact, it was nothing but food bestowed upon him by Allah. So they took him out of the sanctuary of Mecca to kill him. He said, "Allow me to offer a 2-rak'at prayer." Then he went to them and said, "Had I not been afraid that you would think I was afraid of death, I would have prayed for a longer time." So it was Qubayb who first set the tradition of praying 2 rakat before being executed. He then said, "O Allah, count them one by one," and added, "When I am being martyred as a Muslim, I do not care in what way I receive my death for Allah's sake, because this death is in Allah's cause. If He wishes, He will bless the cut limbs." Then Uqba bin al-Harith got up and martyred him. The narrator added, "The Quraysh, infidels, sent some people to Asim in order to bring a part of his body so that his death might be known for certain, for Asim had killed one of their chiefs on the day of Badr. But Allah sent a cloud of wasps which protected his body from their messengers who could not harm his body consequently." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 413. Narrated by Jabir, the person who killed Qubayb was Abu Sarua, i.e. Uqba bin al-Harith. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 414. Narrated by Abdul Aziz, Anas said, "The Prophet sent 70 men, called Al-Qurra for some purpose. The 2 groups of Bani Sulaim called Ril and Dakwan, appeared to them near a well called Burmauna. The people, i.e. Al-Qurra, said, 'By Allah, we have not come to harm you, but we are passing by you on our way to do something for the Prophet.' But, the infidels, killed them. The Prophet therefore invoked evil upon them for a month during the morning prayer. That was the beginning of Al-Qunut, and we used not to say Qunut before that." A man asked Anas about Al-Qunut, "Is it to be said after the bowing, in the prayer, or after finishing the recitation, i.e. before bowing?" Anas replied, "No, but it is to be said after finishing the recitation." Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 415. Narrated by Anas, Allah's Apostle said Al-Qunut for 1 month after the posture of bowing, invoking evil upon some Arab tribes. Sahih Bukhari Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith number 416. Narrated by Anas bin Malik, the tribes of Ril, Dakwan, Yusya, and Bani Liyan asked Allah's Apostle to provide them with some men to support them against their enemy. He therefore provided them with 70 men from the Ansar, whom we used to call Al-Qurra in their lifetime. They used to collect wood by daytime and pray at night. When they were at the well of Mauna, the infidels killed them by betraying them. When this news reached the Prophet, he said Al-Qunut for 1 month in the morning prayer, invoking evil upon some of the Arab tribes, upon Ril, Dakwan, Yusya, and Bani Libyan. We used to read a verse of the Quran revealed in their connection, but later the verse was cancelled. It was, "Convey to our people on our behalf the information that we have met our Lord, and He is pleased with us, and has made us pleased." Anas bin Malik added, Allah's Prophet said Qunut for 1 month in the morning prayer, invoking evil upon some of the Arab tribes, namely, Ril, Dakwan, Yusya, and Bani Libyan. Anas added, "Those 70 Ansari men were killed at the well of Mana.